Hi there. So today I'd like to share a few suggestions for how to deal with your right hand fingernails as a classical guitarist or as a fingerstyle guitarist. And right off the bat, I'd like to say two things. First, there's no rule that says that you must grow longer fingernails on your right hand in order to play the classical guitar. There's no such thing. Um, it's true that guitarists today, classical guitarists today, most of them will have longer fingernails, and mostly for volume purposes, for projection purposes, in order for the instrument to be heard better and to project better in a larger concert hall. To give you a quick example, if I play three notes on the D string, and if I use my thumb on the flash as if I didn't grow a fingernail on it, it would sound something like this. Versus this with the fingernail. Now clearly the second set of sounds is much louder, much more clear, and it will definitely project more in a larger concert hall. But having said that, there's no official rule that says classical guitarists must use their fingernails in the right hand when they play. And the second thing I'd like to say is that there's no official way to do it. There's not one way that works for everybody. There's not one shape that works for everybody. There's not one length that works for everybody. And in fact, if you look at some of the great guitarists in the last century or so, if you look at Segovia's right hand, if you look at John Williams's right hand, if you look at David Russell's right hand, for example, you'll notice that there are differences. Sometimes those differences are quite noticeable, simply because they had different types of fingers, different lengths of fingers. They had different body sizes, and they had different approaches to making a sound on the instrument in the right hand. So there's not one way that works for all, so you have to keep that in mind. For example, with myself, the classical guitar is my main instrument, but I'm a music educator, so I play multiple instruments on a regular basis, such as the piano and a steel string guitar and a bass guitar sometimes. So I have to deal with that. I have to shape my fingernails in such a way that allows me to play as well as I can on the classical guitar, but also on other instruments. So for example, if I allow my right hand fingernails to get too long, then I'd have a hard time playing my left hand on the piano, because you get this clicking sound and it creates all kinds of problems. So just keep in mind that there's not one way that works for all. And if you were to ask 10 different classical guitarists how to do your fingernails in order to play well, you might get 10 different answers. So this is my way, and hopefully I can help you a little bit with it. Here are some of the tools that I use. Take a look. So actually, before I get into the right hand, I would like to say a couple of things about the left hand fingernails. And obviously you have to keep those as short as possible, so you'll need to clip them off on a regular basis. But not only that, I usually use a fingernail file to file the corners off so that I get a smooth round shape. I don't know if it shows in the video, but you want them to be as short as possible, and you want the corners to be rounded off. So I use the fingernail file for that, because sometimes if you have little corners, then they can get hooked onto the string in the left hand, and you get all kinds of clicking sounds that are very unpleasant. So deal with that first. And about the right hand now, just the way that I approach my own shape for the fingernails, I basically follow the shape of the finger. That's not one of the most popular ways to do it today. Lots of guitarists will shape the fingernail in a sort of oblique diagonal way, because that's how they approach the string from the from the left side of the finger. So you will see a lot of guitarists shape the fingernail this way, sort of an oblique way, create an angle, and I'd like to just take the shape of my finger and follow that in the fingernail and do that on each finger, and that works really well for me. So I just pretty much it becomes an extension of the finger in the exact same shape. So that allows me to play at an angle like David Russell if I want, but also at a very straight, from a very, instead of a slanted angle, from a very straight angle. If I want a brighter sound, without having a corner there from the angle that some guitarists create. I'm not saying that my way is better. I'm saying that my way works really well for me. Now about the length, I would suggest that you don't check the length from the front, but rather from the back, because that's what affects the string attack anyways. So I don't know if you can see from there, but mine are kind of too long right now. So they have to get a little bit shorter right now. But again, don't check from the front, check from the back, because that's really how you see the amount of raised fingernail you have to deal with. So I know guitarists sometimes get very nitty-gritty, very picky, and they will actually measure each fingernail above the fingertip and have a specific measurement for each fingernail at each angle. I don't go that way. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I just like I said before, I just follow the shape of my finger, and I go about maybe 3 millimeters above, something like that. I don't really measure it though, so I just go by sight. So again, I don't know if you could see that in there, but mine are a little bit long right now, so I'd like to go down maybe 1 millimeter right now, and I would use a fingernail file. I would never use a clipper on the right hand, because a clipper would mess up the shape. Okay, so you might also cut too much. So I'd never use a clipper on the right hand. I would use different kinds of fingernails you can get. These are the cheap paper ones, and here's a metal one which I really like. This lasts you forever. And here's a glass one. Now this will make for a very smooth surface of your fingernail, and this was like, I think $5, and it's only got one side on it. The other side is just glass. This is made of glass. It's actual glass. And the thing I like about this is that it gives you a smooth surface right away. If you're in a hurry and you don't want to use a metal file and sandpaper, then you just go with a glass file and just use that. And this will give you a smooth enough surface right away. Now, before I talk about the sandpaper, I would like to say a couple of words about the angle at which I hold the fingernail when I use it. Now, I'm not talking about this angle, left and right. I'm talking about this angle, in and out, which ultimately decides the thickness of the fingernail that you're going to end up with. Because if you file this way, I don't know if that shows in the video, but if I go at an angle, like maybe a 45-degree angle, then I'm going to create a very thin fingernail. So what I like to do, I like to go maybe at a straight 90-degree angle and file that way, so that the actual edge of my fingernail is as thick as the fingernail. So I don't end up with a very thin edge, like a sharp edge. That's what happens if you go at an angle like this, and I don't know if that shows in the video, but so I'm trying to go straight down at a straight angle at the top of my fingernail to get as thick as possible an edge of my fingernail. Same thing with the glass. You want to hold it at a straight angle. Now the glass file will take longer because it's a finer file, so it will take longer, but again, keep it at a straight angle. That's the way I do it anyways. Now I was talking about sandpaper. I've used sandpaper ever since I was in college, and I remember I used to use the 500 grade, and then a few years later I ran out and I bought a new pack, and I forget how I ended up with 2000, which is very, very fine, and I ended up kind of liking it. So the paper that I use now, I think I bought this on eBay some 7 years ago, long time ago, and I still have, like, it comes in, I don't know how many sheets were in there, but I'll just take one sheet out to show you. So there must have been, I don't know, 50 sheets in there, because I have like 30 left, and I've had it for years and years. So you get a sheet like this, and it's very fine sandpaper. And what I do, this is too big, so I will bend it in half, the inside like this, and just stir it up, so I get two halves. And then I would keep one out in my guitar case or whatever, and I would fold the other one and just keep it in my wallet, in one of the pockets in my wallet. And the reason for that is, sometimes your fingernail gets damaged a little bit, maybe from holding a key or whatever you do at work, and then I can quickly get this out and smooth it out so that I don't get a bigger crack in my fingernail and end up losing it, and then there'll be a problem for a few days, right? So I just keep one in my wallet all the time. I keep one in my desk at work all the time, and I keep one in my car sometimes, So I highly suggest buying something like this. This was, I forget how much I paid for this. It was very inexpensive. It was like maybe $15-20 for like 50 sheets. And I'm sure Amazon or eBay has it, or even like maybe an auto shop. But you have to make sure that you go with a very fine grade. I would say 500 and up. Mine is 2000. Now, why do we bother? And sometimes people will buy a buffer file with different grades of I don't know what to call it, with different grades of smoothness, I should say, maybe. So I don't like these because they wear out very fast. This one's old, so I never bought another one. They get dirty and old and worn off, so I just don't buy those. I just go with regular files, metal or glass, and lots of sandpaper. Now, why would we use sandpaper? Mainly because not everybody does. Mainly for a smooth sound, especially on the bass strings, but not only on the bass strings. If your fingernail, if you just use a metal file, for example, then you might end up with a scratchy sound here and there. But using a fingernail file, a sandpaper, I should say, would result in a very smooth surface of the fingernail, so that when you play, I get a very smooth sound. Now I'm using an inexpensive microphone to record this video, so I don't know if it actually carries through as a smooth sound, but it's quite smooth. So okay, I think I'll stop here for now. If you have any questions about this, feel free to write them at the bottom of the video. If you liked the video, please click the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please take a moment to subscribe. Thanks, I really appreciate that. And see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.